Oggi siamo qui, oggi il Dental Coach si trova qui in Cornovaglia in compagnia di Mr. Fine e la sua equipe. Vi spiegherò di che cosa si occupa di marketing e nella fattispecie si occupa di marketing per dentisti. Nel passato ha lavorato per importanti brand come B&W, Bentley, let's say what the other
Procter & Gamble,
Procter & Gamble e many altri, L'Oreal, tantissimi altri brand, BMW e da 10 anni a questa parte si occupa di noi dentisti. In questo momento ci spiegherà che cosa fa per aiutare i dentisti inglesi a passare da un fatturato di 400.000 sterline a fatturati come 2 milioni e mezzo di sterline e 3 milioni. Quindi grazie al suo aiuto molti dentisti sono riusciti ad incrementare i loro introiti. Lascio la parola a Mr. Fine, il quale ci spiegherà come aiuta i dentisti ad incrementare il loro reddito. So, can you please explain to us what do you do for the dentist?
Thanks, Grazie. So there are probably 8 key drivers that I look for in a practice when I go and visit it. And I've just made a short note up here, and sorry they're in English, but I'm sure your viewers can translate. So the first one is, when I go and look at a dental practice, I want to first of all understand where it is in the market. And all dental practices, on their very basic mission, look after patients, so are concerned about healthcare. And they care about their patients, but often they're not very centric. The practice isn't very centric around the patient. And what I mean by that is that often a dentist will have no problem keeping a patient waiting half an hour. His justification for that will be the fact that he's running late because he saw an emergency this morning. But the fact of the matter is the patient is sitting in the patient lounge. He expected to be seen at 4:45, it's now 4:15, and he hasn't been seen. So in order for that to not be a problem, you have to have the right processes to support that. So we really call that becoming retail focused, like a hairdresser salon will see you on time, they won't keep you waiting, they'll be much more focused about their delivery. So when I'm trying to evaluate a practice, I'm really wanting to understand where they fit in that particular point. The next one is the revenue mix. So typically, this is the turnover of the practice. So typically in most UK practices, the turnover is about 80% from existing patients and 20% from new patients. And the model we work for is very different. We work at 60% from new patients and only 40% from existing patients. That doesn't mean to say what we're going to do is reduce your existing patient revenue. We're going to keep that 80%, but it will only form 40% of the total revenue because we're going to grow the business significantly through new patients. So that's quite a big challenge for an existing practice that's doing okay, because they feel as though they're making enough money and everything's okay. Why do we need to change it? And the reason you need to change it is that there's a great opportunity to make your practice a lot bigger. The next rule is to focus with these new patients just on high value treatments. So don't be interested in emergency care. Don't be interested in checkups. What you want to do is to sell high value treatments. And the high value treatments split into four main areas. The first one is implants. And under implants we have single, we have multiple, and we have all on 4 or all on 6. That's a very big category in most markets. There's a high demand, particularly with older people. The next category is orthodontics, and it splits between children, teenagers and adults. And of course the adult market is well taken care of with offerings like Invisalign, but there is massive growth for children and for teenagers. So we treat each of those sub-markets individually. Then we have sedation. Sedation is usually is a gateway to a lot of high-value treatments. So somebody who needs sedation probably hasn't been to the dentist for a long time, so there's usually quite a lot of work that needs to be done. And the final area, which is a big growth market in every market, is facial aesthetics, non-surgical interventions to make people look younger or fresher, and it's a very high value area because it's a repeat purchase cycle. So we look at all 4 of those and we start to assess how much work are you doing in that area, how much orthodontic work are you sending away from the practice that we should really be bringing into the practice? And so we start to map out what the potential for the practice is. The next thing we have to do is to increase the capacity of the practice. So if you've only got 3 surgeries, then we have to look at if we're going to grow it by 30% and then 30% the year after and 30% the year after. So within 3 years we're going to double the size of the practice. So today the practice is turning over €1 million. In 3 years' time it will be turning over €2 million. So how are we going to do that? How are we going to increase the capacity, the production capacity? So we do that by generally going to 7 days. By going to 7 days we make the retail appeal much higher. It says we're always open when you want us to be open. And the other thing we do is we work split shifts. We go 8 till 2, 2 till 8. And when you do that 6 days a week or even 7 days a week, you've massively increased your production capacity, so you don't need to worry. So a 3 surgery practice can turn over €3 million with just 3 surgeries if it goes to that sort of model. The next step is to recruit high grossing, high yielding, either specialist dentists or high performing GDPs. So you asked me how long it takes. Well, first of all, this is a very simplistic view of a business, a practice, and every practice is different, and every location is different, and every principle is different. So these are just guiding principles. They're just the things that I look at. But generally it takes about, in terms of time, it takes about a year to affect change in a dental practice, because it may be that, for example, if you've only got 3 surgeries in your practice and you have an associate working for you that's a nice guy, the patients love him, he's just not a very good performer, his revenue is very low, but actually we have to get rid of him and replace him with a high fee earning guy. And that can be painful, especially if you like the person and they haven't done anything wrong. You can try and change them, but the chances are you won't be able to do it because he's in a pattern, he doesn't have what it takes to increase his gross. So it does take time. There will be some quick wins. There will be things that you can actually quickly change a practice and you can increase the revenue quite quickly sometimes, but not necessarily the profitability. The profitability comes later. So our first priority is always to drive the top line, the revenue figure, and then afterwards we go back in and we make it more profitable by fine-tuning and changing and tweaking and messing around. So that's it.
So thank you very much, Mr.
Pleasure.
Fine, for this interview. Ci vediamo presto. Un saluto a tutti da Your Dental Coach.